We begin with Lions Clubs International, the founding, the first in a series of centennial videos.
(1917), a pivotal year in history, a time of immense social and political change. Most of Europe was engaged in World War I, which the U.S. entered that year. In the U.S., cheap labor and the development of the assembly line had led to rapid industrial growth, which in turn brought many social problems. Child labor, crowded tenement districts, high mortality rates, and rapidly spreading diseases were common. Chicago, Illinois, was a center of transportation, architecture, manufacturing, and commerce. It was a magnet for immigrants seeking work. Reformers in Chicago, including Jane Addams, the founder of Hull House, called for improved social conditions in their communities and the country. Among those looking for ways to help others was Melvin Jones, a successful insurance man. He was secretary of the Business Circle of Chicago, a lunch club established in part to help its members grow their businesses. However, Jones had a different goal in mind.
I am finding out that you do not get very far until you start doing things for others. And I am beginning to believe that I can help some of the clubs, like the Circle, to have feelings in their hearts.
Jones's words struck a chord with his club, and the Circle gave Jones permission to invite similar groups across the country to a meeting to discuss forming a new kind of club.
We are now seeking to make our organization international and write to inquire if you would affiliate with us, and at some future date, we can adopt bylaws and a name that will be suited to all.
June 7th, 1917. The first meeting was held at the Hotel LaSalle in Chicago. The Chicago Business Circle and several other groups attended. Dr. William Woods led a delegation called Lions Clubs to the meeting. This group had been registered in Indiana since 1916 and had clubs in a number of other states. Melvin opened the meeting and shared his vision for the new club. The attendees were receptive. Dr. Woods suggested the groups adopt the name Lions and pay dues of $1 per member semi-annually. Melvin and the others seized the opportunity to merge the existing clubs into a new, bigger, stronger organization, and the lion was the perfect symbol. Immediately, Melvin began a letter-writing campaign to attract additional clubs into this new organization, more focused on serving others. In August, Melvin and the members of the Chicago Business Circle formed the Lions Club of Chicago, now the Chicago Central Lions Club. October 8, 1917, the first convention of the International Association of Lions Clubs opened in Dallas, Texas, in the Adolphus Hotel. Delegates from 22 Lions clubs in 9 states voted to keep the name Lions and adopted the logo of a lion holding in its mouth a club inscribed International. They also approved a principle that has guided Lions clubs ever since. No club shall hold out as one of its objects the financial gain of its members. Dr. William Woods was elected president. Melvin Jones was named secretary-treasurer and authorized to establish a headquarters in Chicago. At the end of the Dallas Convention, the new International Association of Lions Clubs had 800 members and $72 in the bank. November 1918. The first edition of the Lions Club magazine was published. It contained a copy of the Lions Code of Ethics, which required a lion to aid my fellow man by giving my sympathy to those in distress, my aid to the weak, and my substance to the needy. It also contained news from the clubs about Lions projects for improving waterways, medical clinics, and public libraries. Lions were also active with many youth projects, including fundraisers for children's hospitals and Boy Scouts. Having fun while helping others was part of Lions from the beginning. A clothing drive for veterans led to an unusual sight of lions parading down the street of their town. By 1919, Lions had grown to 42 clubs across the U.S. with more than 2,300 members. Some of the early clubs had women members, but soon the Constitution and bylaws limited membership to men. It would be almost 70 years, until 1987, before women were again welcomed as members. In 1920, Lioness clubs were established. Many women served alongside family members who were Lions. Also in 1920, in Ontario, Canada, Lions established the Border Cities Lions Club, now called the Windsor Lions Club. It was then that Lions clubs became international.
Now, the fifth in our series of Centennial videos, Peace and International Understanding.
From the beginning, Lions addressed needs in their community. But soon they reached beyond their own backyards. Lions in Houston raised money for Belgian orphans in 1919. And Lions in New Jersey shipped food to starving Armenians in the early 1920s. As Lions clubs expanded, they made a greater impact by joining together.
Lions International has been called on to be world statesmen.
Since its founding, Lions have dedicated themselves to building peace and international understanding across borders and generations. In 1926, Lions established an emergency relief fund to respond quickly to crises anywhere in the world. The Qingdao Lions Club used the fund to aid the people in China when the Yangtze River flooded in the 1930s, leaving millions homeless.
The country's in the grip of misery and famine, helpless in the face of this great calamity.
Tianjin's club president wrote Lions International president and expressed gratitude for the generous donation toward our flood relief work. In the early 1940s, Lions in Ontario and Quebec raised money for children orphaned by war through their British Child War Victims Fund and its Mary Pickford Project. Pickford, an Oscar-winning Canadian silent film star, donated $5,000 from the sale of her Toronto home to kick off the Lions fundraiser. Lions raised $103,000 to provide homes for the children. At the 1943 International Convention, Lions passed a resolution calling for a new international peacekeeping body, the necessity of assuring permanent world peace.
To San Francisco came 1,400 representatives from 46 nations.
In 1945, Lions leaders were among representatives who met to help establish the non-governmental organization section of the United Nations. And they threw their full support behind the new organization, calling upon clubs to support it as well. Lions Clubs International underscored its commitment to a certain and lasting peace for the world in 1946, when International President Pierce delivered greetings to the Paris Peace Conference, which officially marked the end of World War II.
When they left, I says, there goes our Lions International statesmen working for world peace.
The first Secretary General of the United Nations, Trygve Lie, thanked Lions for their good wishes for the successful outcome for the whole work of the United Nations. In 1947, The United Nations granted lions consultative status with the UN Economic and Social Council. Also in 1947, U.S. Lions joined Americans across the nation in supporting the Friendship Train, which picked up food to help feed hungry people in France and Italy. When Texans learned that the Friendship Train wasn't stopping in their state, they organized additional trains to gather food. Melvin Jones called on Texas Lions. They mobilized the relief efforts in the Lone Star State, delivering 46 boxcars filled with food and $10,000 in donations. Lions also partnered with CARE, the Committee for American Relief Everywhere. Clubs in the U.S. and Canada raised millions of dollars for hungry, homeless, and displaced people. In the late 1940s, Lions in Europe began encouraging international friendship and joint service. Twinning began with clubs in Switzerland and Sweden, then spread throughout Europe, Asia, and North America. Lions continued to forge international understanding and bridge political divides when Filipino Lions reached out to Japan, a former occupier.
敵国であった恨みがあるフィリピンのマニラライオンズクラブが恩衆を超えて、そして日本のライオンズを作ろうというわけで東京ライオンズを作られた。
When International Director Manuel J. Gonzalez presented his Filipino flag to me, I hugged it to my bosom, and I could not push back my tears.
でそれによって日本は非常に感激してフィリピンの人のあったかさに感激した。で我々も今引き続いてライオンズクラブでもフィリピンの人たちに少しでもお役に立てばいいということでアクティビティをたくさんやっております。
Lions Club's International Foundation has assisted Lions with this type of large-scale humanitarian work since it was founded in 1968.
Lions formed the Lions International Foundation.
The people who have benefited will never forget the Lions for their generosity.
As Lions' charitable arm, LCIF helps Lions tackle global problems and fund projects that are too big for individual clubs and districts to do on their own. In honor of LCI's 50th anniversary in 1967, Lions held a peace essay contest. More than 1 million youth from 134 countries wrote about how peace is attainable.
Our peace essay contest is the inspiration we implant in the youth of today that becomes the action of tomorrow.
The U.S. Postal Service issued a commemorative stamp. Former U.S. President Dwight Eisenhower served as the honorary head of the panel that selected one winner from each of Lions' 8 geographic areas. The grand prize award of $25,000 went to A. Russell Waddell of Canada.
There is no easy road to peace. Only through evolution of social, moral, and intellectual values can man achieve true peace.
The Youth Exchange Program began in the 1960s when Lions in Japan and California hosted a summer-long student exchange. And in the 1970s, Lions started international youth camps.
Young people of many languages and cultural backgrounds come together to learn from each other, to respect each other as individuals, and to understand their often diverse heritages.
Each year, young people return home as ambassadors for international cooperation and peace. In 1988, Lions created the International Peace Poster Contest. Mustafa Tawukji, who grew up in war-torn Beirut, Lebanon, was the first contest winner. Since 1988, millions of children worldwide have participated. The International Grand Prize winner is honored at Lions Day with the United Nations.
That's really helped me to develop a more worldly view.
Since 2011, students who are blind and visually impaired have also had a chance to express their thoughts on peace through the Lions International Essay Contest.
For me, peace feels like freedom from ignorance or conflicts such as war.
Lions and the United Nations continue to work together to improve lives and further peace around the world. Lions support the UN Millennium Development Goals and the Sustainable Development Goals to combat poverty, hunger, disease, environmental crises, and more. As citizens of the world, Lions respond to one need, one community, one life at a time. In the years, decades, and centuries ahead, Lions will continue to unite in friendship and serve as community and world leaders to sow seeds of peace at home and around the world.
Peace.
Peace.
Shanti.
The Lions Centennial celebrates our contributions across time. Here's a glimpse of our first 100 years.
Now, Knights of the Blind, the third in a series of centennial videos.
The roaring 20s in the U.S. Everything was moving. Automobiles, pictures, and hemlines. The stock market was booming. But for people who were blind, it was a time of struggle. Many viewed people who were blind as incapable of being educated, supporting themselves, or living independently. So they were kept home, closed off from the world. There were some residential schools and a few public school programs in the U.S. for blind children. Lions recognized the need to help and began their journey to become Knights of the Blind. Lions' mission to serve the blind began shortly after their founding in 1917. They created jobs making brooms and checked students' eyesight in school. In 1922, Lions in Cincinnati, Ohio, asked local schools what children who were blind needed most.
Imagine you had gone through your youth with nothing but school books to read.
For more than 40 years, Lions partnered with Clovernook Home for the Blind to produce the International Lions Juvenile Braille Monthly. It was filled with stories, games, and puzzles. Lions reported that it was the first Braille magazine for children.
All of us appreciate the magazine you send each month. It would be nice if we could talk to the Lions Club and tell them how much we like the magazine.
Lions encourage clubs around the U.S. and Canada to provide it for free. Visually impaired students from Clovernook typed, printed, and bound the pages.
We are sure that no club has ever done anything more worthwhile.
In 1925, 7,500 Lions gathered at Cedar Point in Sandusky, Ohio for their annual convention. Helen Keller, accompanied by her teacher, Ann Sullivan, spoke to Lions.
I appeal to you, Lions. You who have your sight, your hearing. You who are strong and brave and kind. Will you not constitute yourselves knights of the blind in my crusade against darkness?
This became a rallying cry and energized Lions to do more on behalf of people who are blind and visually impaired. Delegates unanimously voted to make Helen and Ann honorary Lions, the first women to receive this honor. Houston Lion J.W. James, who owned a furniture business, was inspired to start employing women who were blind to make lampshades. Later, his club helped others earn a living sewing a variety of items.
Don't make the mistake by holding your blind workers down to menial tasks. Their fingers are capable of the most delicate work, which ought to command a higher price than what the blind usually do.
In California, Berkeley Lions formed the first scout troop for blind boys. With their peers, they explored the outdoors and learned citizenship. Lion George Ahern served as scoutmaster for many years.
My greatest thrill is watching these boys develop skills, broaden their interests, gain self-confidence, and thoroughly enjoy themselves.
In Illinois, Peoria Lions Club president George Bonham noticed his friend, a blind newspaper stand operator, struggle to cross the street as he held his black cane. Bonham thought that white canes with a red tip would be easier for drivers to see. His Lions Club convinced the city council to pass the first white cane law in 1930, giving blind pedestrians the right of way. By 1956, every U.S. state had white cane laws.
There is scarcely a community where the white cane of the blind is not as common as blindness itself.
Lions worked internationally for similar laws. The Boston and Manchester Lions Clubs partnered with Perkins Institute for the Blind to start Camp Allen in 1931. Named for Lion Edward Allen, the director at Perkins, it was the first camp to provide outdoor recreation for girls who were blind. It led to Lions establishing similar camps throughout the world. Through the years, Helen Keller continued to visit Lions Clubs, praising them for their attitude toward the blind, which she called new to the world.
Lions are trying to help the blind as they would help one of their number who had met with a misfortune, and not as people different from everyone else.
In Michigan, the Detroit Uptown Lions launched a guide dog program in 1939 to help one of their own. When Glenn Wheeler couldn't get into a program, his fellow Lions created one with just $400 and a hat full of ideas. Known as Leader Dogs for the Blind, this program has helped thousands gain newfound freedom and independence.
With verbal commands and hand gestures, she directs Sherry to their destination.
That's still true today. Pauline Ulrich has had Leader Dogs for 52 years.
It's given me the opportunity to basically go anywhere I want to go.
Internationally, Lions have started and supported many other guide dog schools. In 1945, Lions opened the nation's second eye bank in Buffalo, New York.
A donor eye was used with a clear cornea. It was like putting a clear window where a frosted window was before. I'll never forget the very first day the doctor took the bandage off. It was the most beautiful sight there was.
Lions opened eye banks in many nations to help millions see again through corneal transplants.
You can't put a price on sight, especially to a little fella as small as he is that never has seen anything.
Across the U.S., Lions provided pocket braille writers, known as the blind man's fountain pen. Lions have also collected, recycled, and distributed millions of eyeglasses to people around the world through the Lions Eyeglass Recycling Program and Eyeglass Recycling Centers. Lions' work as Knights of the Blind and friendship with Helen Keller continue to grow. Lions awarded her the International Gold Medal in 1951. 2 years later, Helen spoke of her travels at the Lions International Convention in Chicago.
I had known that the Lions of the United States had chosen, as their basic activity, work for the blind, but I had not realized they had leaped over the wall of different languages to unite in their services to the captives of the dark.
One of her final public appearances was in 1961, when she was honored with a Lions Humanitarian Award. Throughout the 1960s and 70s, Lions' work as Knights of the Blind grew.
I'm Roy Rogers, and I've been checking my notes here in preparation to tell you a story. It's about a wonderful place in America where a group is working to rehabilitate blind men and women and boys and girls to learn to live with their blindness.
In India, we have many blind people, especially amongst the poor. The real tragedy is that so much of that blindness can be prevented.
In 1990, Lions Clubs International Foundation launched the Sight First program, taking Lions service to new levels. Major cataract campaigns helped millions regain their sight. Sight First also helps eliminate sight-robbing diseases such as river blindness and trachoma.
The most gratifying part of it is what we do in partnership with Lions International. I have a feeling, standing here before you, of gratitude for what Lions do throughout the world.
Sight First continues to establish comprehensive eye care systems. It's also increasing low vision services and educational opportunities for those who are blind. Though much has been accomplished, Lions remain steadfast in their commitment to serve as Knights of the Blind. They will not rest until everyone has a chance to live life to the fullest.
Someday, you will look over the fields of your endeavors. If I am still alive, I shall say, "Well done, good and faithful Knights of the Blind." And you will say with equal joy, "We have received as richly as we have given."
Now, the fourth in our series of Centennial videos, Growth and Expansion.
For 100 years, Lions have combined their desire to serve with strategic expansion around the globe, making Lions Clubs International the world's largest service club organization. Lions Clubs International was founded in 1917 with 800 members in 9 U.S. states. Lions appealed to businessmen who wanted to network and serve their communities.
The standard embraced in the principles of Lionism attracts men of the finest caliber, who have the will to do and the means with which to build.
Many clubs, including the Denver Club, grew quickly. It began with 53 members in 1917. 2 years later, membership climbed to 200. Melvin Jones dispatched field reps to focus on forming new clubs. One of the most successful reps was G.M. Cunningham. He organized nearly 100 clubs in just a few years. By 1920, Lions expanded to 23 U.S. states and became international, with the Border Cities Lions Club in Windsor, Canada. 4 years later, membership grew from 6,400 to 36,000 and reached all 48 U.S. states. The first club launched outside North America was in Tianjin, China in 1926. Theodore Semang, an American practicing law in China, organized the club with the help of businessmen from China, Europe, the U.S., and Japan. In 1927, Lions established the Nuevo Laredo Lions Club in Mexico and a club in Havana, Cuba. At the 14th International Convention in 1930, International President Ray Riley called for
an aggressive campaign in foreign extension so that Lionism may have the stimulation of world contact.
Early on, several famous people were recruited to spread the word about Lions. Admiral Richard E. Byrd Jr., a member in Washington, D.C., publicized Lions on his trips to the North and South Pole in the late 1920s.
We carried the Lions flag with us to the top of the world and felt it the greatest possible honor to do so.
Later, another famous aviator and an honorary Lion, Amelia Earhart, became the first person to fly nonstop from Los Angeles to Mexico City, where Lions were holding their international convention. She congratulated the organization on
doing its full share toward the furtherance of the spirit of Lionism and international relationships.
Despite the Great Depression, Lions continued to cross borders, with new clubs in Latin America throughout the 1930s and into the 40s.
We're developing at the rate of about a club a day. You'll find them in some phase of activity for the community, state, and nation.
After World War II, Lions crossed oceans and political divides.
The Lions had the high ideals that could appeal to a group of young men just returning from the battlefronts with a worldwide vision. A group of young men active, energetic, enthusiastic, the doers of the earth.
In 1947, Lions expanded beyond their wildest dreams, becoming the world's largest service club organization. New clubs were chartered in Australia, Europe, and Asia. By 1950, there were more than 400,000 members in 31 countries.
Lionism is a tremendous force. As Lions, we are all going far beyond our political boundaries, building up a brotherhood among the citizens of our several countries.
Lions chartered clubs in South America, Europe, Africa, the Middle East, and South Asia in the early 1950s. President Edgar M. Elbert called it the beginning of the glory years. By 1957, Lions reached all 7 continents with the launch of a club of scientists at a research station in Antarctica.
Our association now has clubs in 91 countries or geographic areas of the free world.
Lions in Pennsylvania organized the first Leo Club at Abington High School in 1957. Within 10 years, Leo clubs became an international program, offering youth the opportunity to serve and develop leadership skills.
To me, it was the only service organization at school that I really wanted to be in because it was the only one that did anything that I really thought I'd like to do.
Birgitta Akestam, a Leo in Sweden in 1972, dreamed of becoming a Lion, but she couldn't because she was a woman. At the state convention that year, her father, Sten, asked the question,
why couldn't we allow our women into our clubs? It took a long time.
È stato anche molto piacevole, anche con soddisfazione, perché abbiamo incontrato anche Lions maschi che ci hanno, come si può dire, confortato e che ci hanno stimato, quindi hanno capito il nostro lavoro.
At the 1986 International Convention, the vote to allow women fell just short of the required 2/3 majority. The following year saw a landmark U.S. Supreme Court decision.
A sweeping anti-discrimination ruling was handed down today.
The court ruled on a suit with another organization that women must be allowed to join such clubs. Lions in the U.S. quickly moved to welcome women as members.
We feel that it's certainly time for service club organizations in the United States and indeed the world to open up to women.
A few months later, International President Sten Akkestam presided over the International Convention in Taipei, where Lions voted to open membership to women around the world.
There was a great roar in the convention hall.
I hereby accept membership in the Lakeview Lions Club.
Soon, women became the fastest growing group in the association. From the 1980s into the 90s, Lions chartered clubs in 36 new countries. A partnership between China Disabled Persons Federation and Sight First opened the door for Lions clubs to be the first service club organization in China.
Lions are able to get in is because we've been working so hard to help the people over there.
In 2002, Lions chartered clubs on the Chinese mainland. They've embraced the opportunity to serve. The 21st century has seen growth through specialized clubs.
Our campus club is rapidly growing. Our goal is to get over 100 members.
On campuses, in families, and in the workplace.
We are Lions from Fort Belvoir, Virginia. Hoorah!
Today, Lions Clubs International remains the world's largest service club organization, with more than 1.4 million members in more than 200 countries. Lions continue to grow and meet the changing needs of communities and the world as they move forward into their second century of service.
Yes.
We, as Lions, are intensely proud of the dreamer, the doer, who conceived the idea of this organization and then proceeded to devote his entire life to the execution of the idea.
For more than 40 years, Melvin Jones provided the leadership, organizational skills, tenacity, and muscle to lay the foundation for Lions Clubs International. On January 13, 1879, Melvin Jones was born in the Arizona Territory at Fort Thomas. His father was a scout for the U.S. Army. As a boy, he moved to the Midwest, where he attended school and studied law. At the age of 20, he moved to Chicago, where he sang in the Apollo Music Club and entered the insurance business. In 1913, the Melvin Jones Insurance Agency was established, and Melvin joined the Chicago Business Circle. It was a networking and social club. He served as secretary, but had bigger aspirations.
What if these men who are successful because of their drive, intelligence, and ambition were to put their talents to work improving their communities?
He began inviting other clubs to join into one larger service organization. His wife, Rose, a top national golfer, worked many nights alongside him. From the first meeting and convention in 1917, Melvin was the driving force in shaping Lions Clubs International.
Well, we took the name Lion because it stood for courage, strength, activity, and fidelity. That was to be the platform on which Lionism was to be founded.
Melvin launched the Lions magazine in 1918. He was its first editor. He kept abreast of world events and studied other organizations, knowing it would impact the future of Lions. In 1919, Melvin had the International Association of Lions Clubs incorporated. Its first office was in Melvin's insurance agency. He often worked 7 days a week on correspondence, setting up the organizational structure and expanding membership.
Dear Cub, we have been advised that you have become a Lion. There is only one thing greater than having the privilege of being a member of a Lions Club, and that is helping to build one.
And he pushed hard.
Word has come into the office that you are desirous of closing your charter membership with not more than 50 members. I came to the conclusion that you should have at least 100 members, or possibly 150.
He started an extension program, sending organizers into the field to create new clubs. He personally attended many charter ceremonies. Nothing escaped his attention. In 1923, he outlined the charter ceremony.
The presentation of the charter should be a very serious and sublime moment. Take the president's right hand, holding the charter in your left hand.
Lions grew from 800 members at the end of the first convention to more than 32,000 in only 6 years. Melvin set the tone for the entire organization.
Come right down to the thing that I've always felt probably should be first. Unite the members in bonds of friendship, good fellowship, and mutual understanding.
And Melvin the tenor encouraged singing. But the Great Depression quieted Lions' roar. Many of the 75,000 Lions were unable to pay their dues, yet Melvin persisted, encouraging Lions leaders to hold their clubs together and to look for new members. His plan to grow internationally gained momentum in the 1930s as clubs formed across Latin America. In 1939, the Cuban government presented Melvin with the National Merit Award, the highest award given to civilians. Traveling in every fashion, from airplane to burroback, Melvin Jones visited clubs in many lands.
The Lions are keeping me humping, for they are now organizing a club a day every workday of the year.
He was a master of publicity, even using his birthday to promote Lions. By 1940, Lions had grown to more than 137,000 members in 10 countries. But soon, World War II presented challenges. Again, Melvin and the Lions pressed on.
Lions live to make this world better, not only for this generation, but for the next.
After the end of the war, there were almost 220,000 Lions in 18 countries. Writing to his nephew, an Army corporal in Manila a few weeks after the war ended, Melvin took every opportunity to expand Lions.
We have been thinking somewhat of the possibility of having Lions clubs in the Philippines. We would be interested in what you think about conditions there as of the present time.
In 1945, when the United Nations was formed, Melvin was invited to represent Lions. By that time, Lions headquarters was outgrowing its rented offices. So Melvin embarked on a plan to build the Lions International City, also known as Liondom. With the approval of the board, he purchased 200 acres of land 30 miles south of Chicago for a headquarters building, homes for employees, a library, schools, hotel, post office, and even a cemetery. In the early 50s, after years of lackluster financial backing and wavering support, the board terminated the project. Authority within the staff was redistributed, and Jones now shared power on an administrative committee. In 1954, Rose, Melvin's wife of 45 years, died. Melvin continued to focus on the association. Over the years, he was involved in every aspect of the International Convention. He believed it was an opportunity to stimulate growth and enthusiasm.
It was a great honor for me to ride on Melvin Jones' float.
He insisted on a thrilling and inspiring international night show and key member recognition, events still part of convention today. Melvin never missed an international convention. In 1956, he arrived with his new wife, Lillian.
Among the first of you to arrive was Secretary General Melvin Jones and his bride of one day.
That year, Melvin reflected on his life with Lions.
I have traveled many miles to bring Lions International to life. It was estimated that it might run to a figure of more than 200,000 miles per year for more than 30 years.
No matter how far he traveled, Melvin always remained dedicated to his local Lions clubs. He was an active member of 4 Chicago area clubs. Melvin had a way of making Lions feel special.
Melvin Jones inducted me into the Chicago Central Lions Club in the year 1958. Melvin was enthusiastic, and he was very strong, and he was larger than life.
In 1958, the Lions International Board of Directors added founder to his title of Secretary General. Even this new title could not capture his enormous impact on the association. During the 1960 Chicago Convention, he was helped from his wheelchair to acknowledge the standing ovation from Lions. When Melvin died at the age of 82 on June 1st, 1961, there were more than 625,000 Lions in 114 countries.
I hope there will always be a land of beyond for Lions International, a goal that will keep growing larger and larger as we approach it, yet will keep just out of reach, challenging us to run faster, work harder, think bigger, give more.